Throw your cranes up.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to class this morning. Thank you for joining me. Whether you're watching live or you're watching the recording this morning, thank you for watching. As we get started today, we got a lot to cover. I want to talk about creating a brand for social media, and what we'll look at today is like some of the background of kind of what it means to create a brand, why we would want to create a brand, and we'll look a little bit at how we can make some elements to create a brand with. We'll look at some of the tools that we can use to be able to do this. But before we get started this morning, I just kind of want to reiterate the message that I sent out yesterday regarding the lab for this module, and just kind of clearing that up, right? So that list there is just a list of options, right? Like, you don't have to have everything. Not everything there might be relevant to you. A lot of that stuff probably wouldn't be relevant to you, right? So that's just kind of a list of ideas, more so than a list of things that I'm expecting. As I mentioned in the announcement that I sent out yesterday, all that I'm really expecting is just a little Word document kind of explaining your plan, kind of how you look to create a brand. And if you have something like a logo or something like that that you either want me to help you with, which you can ask for that again. You know, I asked about that when we did the proposal back at the beginning of the class, but I'm asking about it again now that we're learning about what a brand is and kind of getting some brand elements. If you want some help from me with that, I'd be happy to help you with it. Or if you want to use some of the tools that we'll be looking at today to make some stuff, you're welcome to do that as well. But all I'm really expecting for the lab assignment for tomorrow is the just the document kind of talking about what your brand is as you see it. So we are talking about creating a brand for social media, and we'll talk about why this is so important. And really, when we kind of look at everything nowadays, when it comes to a brand and social media, everything is a brand on social media to a degree. Even individuals who are just, individual people using social media have a brand on social media. Right? Because we even us as individuals, we choose how to present ourselves. So we're choosing a tone of voice, we're choosing a visual aesthetic, right? And like the pictures that we like and the things that we want associated with us. And so this brand, we often hear about branding in relation to businesses, but especially on social media, the brand really extends to everybody. And having a good personal brand is something that can help you. Or I should say, having a good personal brand on social media is something that can help you. Because we do live in an age where, everybody's on social media, right? Even hiring managers are on social media. So the way that you choose to present yourself on social media could have an impact on whether or not you get hired for a job. And so how you choose your brand presentation can have a big impact on what you do. So even if, you might be thinking, well, I'm not a business, right? Or I don't want to do this as a business going forward or work for a business doing this going forward. Even if you're going to be an individual on social media, to some extent, you need to be aware of what your brand is. So I've been kind of throwing this word brand around a lot here, and I think one of the first things that we kind of need to do is define that term, right? So what exactly is a brand? And we could say that a brand is something that uniquely identifies an individual, as we just mentioned, or an organization. Right? And what could that be, right? We'll look at a list of all this stuff in a little bit. But what can uniquely identify anyone? Right? Just something that is a unique identifier. In the module, it talks about how the idea of a brand actually came from the concept of physical brands, branding irons when ranchers would brand cattle. Right? They'd put a logo on them so that whenever anybody would see this cow, they would know that belongs to this ranch or that ranch or whatever. Right? So when we think about brands, we think about something that makes us kind of stand apart, that makes the content that we produce uniquely identifiable and immediately identifiable, right? As we kind of work down that brand funnel, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. So when we really get down to it, there are a lot of elements that make up a brand. Right? In social media, we see, the visuals, the sounds, the audio, like a lot of sensory material. Right? A lot of sensory material makes up a brand. So what we see, what we hear, the way things come across, right? And we'll get into a more specific list of this stuff in just a little bit. But when we expand that out and we get into other instances of a brand, and we'll talk about this more in just a little bit as well, we see things like, if you go to a fast food restaurant or you get food from a fast food restaurant, if you get food from a McDonald's in Shelby, North Carolina, and then you fly all the way across the country and get food from a McDonald's in, say, Salem, Oregon, that food's going to taste pretty much the same, right? Like it might be, you know, slightly better prepared at one place or another, but it's going to taste the same from one side of the country to the other side of the country. And that's because that's part of McDonald's brand. That taste is part of the brand, right? That taste is uniquely identifiable, something that is immediately identifiable, right? So you see this consistency from restaurant to restaurant to restaurant to restaurant because it's part of creating that brand identity, right? We take all of the elements that kind of make up our brand, and that creates our brand identity. And at the end of the day, when we create this brand identity, what we're really doing here is we're kind of using this brand to tell our story, right? So we can kind of use these terms like unique identifier or immediate identifier or identity or things like that. But at the end of the day, what a brand really is kind of our story, right? Or it's the story that we want to tell about whatever it is that we're doing. So companies have a story. Social media influencers have a story. They have, or at least a version of a story they would like for you to see. So this brand tells this story. And the most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. As Steve Jobs once said, the most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation that is to come. So what we want to get out of this Steve Jobs quote is the idea of the power of a story. Right? Because when we look at a brand, we can look at Apple as a brand. Apple under Steve Jobs and the story that they told through their branding and through their products. And really what we see here is exactly what happened, right? The story that Apple told set the tone for really several different major periods in technological history, right? Like if we look back, at the idea of the personal computer in the early 80s, the popularity and the promotion of the Apple II. We look into a more modern era, like if you look back in the late 90s at the iMac and the iBook, as it was kind of gaining traction. And then we look into, the early 2000s, 2008, 2009, when we see the iPhone and how the idea of the smartphone and what Apple was doing with the smartphone and how they branded it, how they told the story behind that, made an entirely huge impact. Which, big deal, right? So if we have enough power behind these stories that we're telling, we can gain influence, right? And at the end of the day, that's kind of what we're looking at on social media is influence. So proper storytelling creates influence is the summary of that, and then the storytelling is our brand. And the story that we tell, right, is told in those brand elements. Right? It's told in parts. Right? So we're not necessarily going to get it all at once. Right? We're going to get a little bit from the logo, and we're going to get a little bit from the tone of voice and the way that somebody describes things, and we're going to get a little bit from the videos that they create. We're going to get a little bit from here and there, right? The story that we tell, we're telling kind of piecemeal. right? But at the end of the day, if we take all of that material and we put it together, we end up with a complete story that people can hear, that people can understand and relate to. So the summation of our brand and all the parts of our brand exhibits our story, again, or the story that we want to tell, right? Like, we don't necessarily have to get personal with it. We're just telling the story of what we're doing. Yeah, so that leads to the establishment of the brand. Just a moment. All right, sorry about that. And so, in saying that, kind of what we're doing here is we're telling a story that kind of gives us a nice little groundwork here. And so, I think before we kind of get into the specifics of this, I want to kind of talk a little more about some definitions, some things that we kind of want to be aware of, some words that we've probably heard before, and what they mean to us, right? So you might have heard of the idea of brand presence versus brand awareness. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to talk about the difference between these two items, brand presence and brand awareness. And we talk about it a little bit in the module as well. So the presence creates the awareness. Right? When we're talking about presence here, we're talking about just that. Right? We're talking about being present, being there. And, we'll talk more in the future about where your audience is or who the people you would like to be your audience, where they are. And your brand should be present where your audience is. One of the things that we talk about oftentimes is going to your audience. So if your audience is on Facebook, you go to Facebook. If your audience is on TikTok, maybe you go to TikTok, right? Wherever your audience is, that's where you want to establish your presence. And you want to start kind of just being there, right? When we talk about presence, we're talking about just being there, right? When you put up a billboard or when you put out a post, right? Just in general, just being there, just kind of doing the work to be present, that's establishing your presence, your brand presence. And the greater your brand presence, the more ubiquitous your brand is among your audience, the more likely you are to create awareness. So if you make your brand present, then the audience becomes aware. Now, what we'll talk about in a few minutes here when we look at our funnel is that awareness is really a surface level interaction. Right? It's basically just saying, I know what that is. Right? Seeing it and recognizing it, becoming aware that something's there. Right? Like, maybe just in general, right? You might have had an experience before where you've been in a room and somebody kind of comes up behind you and stands behind you. They're present. But, as long as they're kind of quiet and not moving, right? Maybe they kind of stay out of your field of view, but maybe if they start to move around, maybe if you do whatever, you start to notice them. You might not know who they are, you might not know what they do, but you notice that they're there. And that's this idea of awareness. And so if we just keep telling our story, right? We keep telling that story in a consistent manner, that's going to create a larger brand presence. So the more that we tell our story, the more that we get out there what we want to get out there through all the different pieces that we want to get out there, through our logos, through our colors, through our music and videos and whatever we're using for our material. The more that we put that out there and the more that we establish our presence, the more likely it is to create that awareness and create that connection. So what again are we doing to tell our story? We're establishing our brand identity. So I think in talking about that, I think it's important for us to kind of look a little more at these different pieces of our brand identity and get a little more specific with that. And so as we are establishing a brand presence, each one of these things is going to help establish a brand presence. It's going to help us connect the story, or it's going to help us tell a story and connect to users to create awareness. And so some of these things here are relevant to us, and some of them are just kind of relevant to the larger idea of branding, like smells, of course. Right? We're not putting out very many smells through social media. But logo and colors and patterns, these help to establish a visual identity. We'll look just a moment at a brand, and what this brand that we'll look at has done is established a very strong visual identity. So that when we see the brand exist, we immediately recognize, recall, have this big connection. Right? And so part of that, especially for us, is going to be visual. Right? And we're going to use the same colors, and we're going to use the same patterns, and we're going to use the same logo across different platforms just to create a visual identity that is consistent from YouTube to Twitter to Instagram to Facebook, whatever. Right? Because, like we're doing in our project, oftentimes to, establish and grow a community, you're going to where your community is, and oftentimes your community is in multiple places. So we want to have the biggest possibility for the highest reach. So we want to go to these multiple places. But if we present ourselves differently in these multiple places, we're not telling our story, right? We're not being consistent. Our story is changing from platform to platform, and our users can't draw that through line from one to another to another to another to know just who you are, or just what your product is about, or what have you, throughout the different platforms where you want them to follow you. Right? So we're going to use consistent colors, and we're going to use consistent patterns, image selection for pictures. Right? Like, if you kind of consider your brand to be kind of like a serious brand, and you post serious things and you talk about serious stuff, and all of a sudden you start posting, silly memes to one of your platforms, right? You are breaking that story. You're losing that consistency. So these visuals help develop a through line and help tell our story. The music that we choose. Right? Like if we have background music in videos, or if we have, or, if we're musicians, right? Some of you might be musicians and you want to kind of focus on your music. Your music establishes a story, and it establishes who you are. And so your background music or the music that you play or whatever creates an identity for you. So if all of a sudden you have this really big hard switch from one to another, that kind of breaks that identity. Right? Like if you normally play like nice little soft ambient music and all of a sudden it switches to just the hardest, darkest metal you've ever heard, that's a tonal switch, and that's a completely different identity, a completely different brand than you had before. And so you're going to lose people, right? Because the story you're telling might not resonate anymore. It might not connect anymore. Slogans or catchphrases, right? This is something that's really popular, right? Especially when we get into the interactive sort of social media. A catchphrase will catch on. A slogan will catch on. Right? Even if it's something just as simple as like calling your audience a different name. Right? Coming up with a name for your audience. Instead of just your fans, they're the I don't know, Soul Squad, whatever. Like, because that creates, that further helps to create this brand, helps to create a connection, right? Because then your users aren't just another person out there that's consuming your media. They're part of something bigger. They're part of a community. And so if you use this sort of slogan or use this sort of catchphrase like, what's going on? Good time, gang, or whatever, struggling coming up with a good audience name on a rainy Wednesday morning. Right? Carrying that forward, calling them that consistently helps build that identity, helps build that presence, and all of a sudden, right, you have people that are traveling down that funnel, right, that marketing or brand funnel that we'll talk about on the next slide here. And they're going from awareness to engagement on into loyalty because they feel a part of something bigger, right? They feel a part of the community. Smells, like even smells, right? Like if you, and again, this is something that's not as relevant for social media, but it goes back to that idea of how, like with the McDonald's, like the taste from one part of the country to another part of the country helps to tell the story and establish an identity for McDonald's. Smells even. Right? Like if you walk into a Starbucks has a smell. Right? And it's identifiable, and every Starbucks kind of has this smell. And actually one of the kings of smells is Disney. Disney utilizes smells in branding to an incredible degree. Right? Because what they'll do is they'll pump some artificial type smells into certain areas of the park because they know that makes connection. They know that makes relationships, right? Like you're on Main Street and you all of a sudden get a whiff of fresh bread or fresh popcorn. And seeing the visuals and hearing the sounds and smelling the smells, it all creates this connection. It all creates this connotation of taking you back to maybe when life was a little simpler, maybe back when you were a little younger and things were easier and life was good, right? Right? All of these things are working together to tell this story of magic and childlike wonder and nostalgia and all this sort of fun stuff, right? So when we're creating our brand and we're, building our story and telling our story and establishing our identity, oftentimes we just talk about it in terms of a logo and some graphics and whatnot, but it really is a full sensory experience. And once again, like the, smells and tastes aren't necessarily, what we're going to be concerning ourselves with on social media, but sights and sounds and even feels, right? Even the way something feels. Because one of the things that I'll talk about here is, merchandise, right? If you sell merchandise, which if you get popular enough on social media, that's something that you might want to do. You might want to sell merchandise. And having a t-shirt that feels a certain way probably should be important to you. Right? Having this, nice soft shirt. Making sure that your merchandise is quality and it feels nice. Because you're trying to establish a story, a brand of being high quality. Of being worthy of purchase. But even something as simple as tone of voice, the way that you say things. Right? Because you're telling your story, and the way that you write and the way that you talk, right, it is directly reflective of who you are as an individual. So if you're, going to dramatically change your tone of voice from platform to platform to platform, people are going to kind of miss out on this connection of who you are, that they can kind of glean through things like tone of voice. Again, we're not talking about sharing personal things. Obviously, we're talking about things within the context of just whatever you're doing, right? But the way that you talk about what you're doing just gives people insight and allows them to make connections. And makes you more relatable, right? Are you that person that wants to talk about topics in a super serious manner and really, like deliver some education and make it super serious? Because that's a brand, right? And some people like that and some people want that. Or, do you want to kind of talk to people the way that you'd talk to somebody sitting in your living room? Just super casual. That's also a brand, right? And different people are going to connect to those different things. And, where your audience is and what your audience wants could be one or another. And it also could have a little something to do with who you want your audience to be. Right? Because you might not want your audience to be full of, these super serious people who take things too seriously. Because you like to have fun with whatever it is that you're talking about. And you like to take it light and do whatever just have a great time with it. So if you present your story in such a way that it's like that, and it's not, today we'll be talking about the concepts of whatever, right? You're gonna draw in those people that you want to draw in, and those people that you might not want to draw in because they're, not really your ideal audience. They don't connect to it as well, so you don't see them. So all of these ideas about building this brand identity, it moves into this idea of a marketing funnel or a brand funnel, right? We can look at this from either perspective. What we can see here, I kind of tried to present this in such a way to kind of show it going from big to small, right? Because that's the idea of a funnel, right? Like if you look at a funnel, nice wide open top, tiny bottom. Right? So the more people that we're going to catch in, we're going to catch them in the large end, right? And we're going to lose people along the way, right? That's why we want that brand presence to be as big as it possibly can be, because that brand awareness, which is the top level of our funnel, is going to capture the most people, but as they travel down, the funnel, we're going to lose people, right? So if we can cast a wider net to begin with and get more people in, when we lose them, we're losing a smaller percentage of the wide net that we cast. And so we start out here at the top at the awareness level. And at the awareness level, again, we're just establishing that brand awareness. People have seen us and they know we exist. Right? So once we create a presence, people start to see us, people start to know we exist. They enter into our funnel. Then they go into engagement. So at this point, now they're not just aware of us. It's not just that they know we exist. They're starting to read our posts, read our blog a little bit, here and there, watch our videos, read our tweets and our Facebook posts, maybe hop into our live streams for a few minutes just to see what's going on, right? They're starting to get involved. They're starting to get engaged. And the more they kind of get a little taste here and there of what we're doing, then they might go into that evaluation phase. And they might say, I enjoy this. It's not just that I want this information, or it's not just that I'm aware of this and kind of want to see what it's all about, but I'm going to make a value judgment on it. I'm going to evaluate it. And I'm going to say, you know what? I like it. I think this is good. So I'm going to start actively getting more and more involved in it. And you can kind of see how, people are going to trickle off here. Right? A lot of people might know who you are, but, some fewer are going to actually read what you're saying and watching your videos. And then some fewer are going to make the active decision as to whether or not they like you and evaluating what you're doing. And then even fewer are going to make that purchase. Now, this marketing funnel extends out into, brands in general, right? It extends out into products and all of this kind of stuff. But we, in the social media sphere, we still have a purchase. We still have a call to action that we want people to do. We want them to subscribe. We want them to follow. We want them to, make these decisions to actually interact with our content. So it's not just like, okay, I know who this is. I'll kind of watch a little bit of it when I see it, or I'll read a little bit of it here or there when I see it. It gets to this point where we're going to actively seek it out. We're going to make the purchase in this case, which is the follow, the subscription, what have you. And then we're going to get to that point of support. Right? So a lot of people, or, I follow a lot of YouTube channels that I wouldn't necessarily call myself a supporter of, right? Like, I'm not actively donating. I'm not actively buying merchandise. I'm not actively sharing content of theirs. Right? I've gone down this funnel far enough to say, well, I'd heard of these people. I saw some of their stuff. I saw it and I liked it. I finally decided that I liked it, so I've subscribed. But that's kind of where I trail off in the funnel, right? I don't, didn't really do much further. Right? I think Twitch in general is a great example of something that can be utilized for the marketing funnel. Right? Because they have clear call to actions that we can see for all the steps here. Right? Because they have a watch page where you can see all the people who are live. And you can be aware of all the people who are live and just understand, like, okay, this person exists and they stream on Twitch. That's great. Then, from that watch page, you can click on one and watch a little bit of a stream. And that falls into that engagement category. And then you can evaluate that and say, well, do I want to move on to the next? Do I like this? Do I want to move on to the next part? Am I going to consider this beyond just, I tried it out, I want to try it out every now and again or whatever. Then on Twitch, you can choose to follow, or you can choose to subscribe. And following is a different level of support. It's that sort of purchase level, right? Where you've actually engaged with the content and you have, made the choice to follow this individual and you put them in a special category, right? But you still are missing, you don't pay anything for a follow. Following's free. And so you miss out on some of the benefits of what you'd get from the support level, which is subscribing. Paying $5 a month to be a subscriber and get their special emotes and watch their channels ad-free and all this sort of stuff. And finally, you have loyalty. Right? They're not just one of the people you support, they're your favorite. You're going to buy the merch. You're going to support what they do, right? You're going to share their content. You're going to be basically all in. So ideally, we'd like to get people from the top of this funnel, from the awareness level, all the way down to the loyalty level, where we have essentially return customers, repeating customers there. And so one of the best ways to do this is via triggers. Let's talk about triggers. So triggers are predefined conditions that determine when a message should be presented, right? When our story should be told, what elements of our story should be shared, kind of what are we doing here, right? So like at the awareness level, we might want to have more of a certain type of thing than at the support level. Right? We have different triggers that are tied to these 6 stages of our funnel. So for example, if we just want to get new people visiting us, we want to kind of move into that awareness stage. We want to share some messaging with new people, right? If we have new people coming to our content, right? Like if we have people that are just kind of seeing what we're doing out there, we want to try to engage these new people to pull them down the funnel and get them to the next level, right? Whatever that means to your particular audience. People might be looking for a certain thing. And so you can start putting out, how your story relates to that particular thing. Then, from there you get new subscribers, and new subscribers need their own message, right? To pull them down into the next stage. So they can go from subscribers to supporters. And then when people are sharing content and they're actually getting actively involved in what you're doing, like there's messaging that you can do there as well. That'll help take people from the support level to the loyalty level, right? And it's just about kind of making sure your story is told, making sure you get your message across. Thanking new people is always an easy one, right? Like, thank you to my new subscribers. Thank you to this. We incorporate something in there. Like a lot of people will, even just a simple shout out, like a lot of people do on Twitch, right? Like if you've seen Twitch, a Twitch streamer will get a new subscriber and they'll say, hey, thank you for subscribing so-and-so. Welcome to the whatever, welcome to the, welcome to the club, right? Welcome to the whatever nation or whatever, it goes back to that slogan, right? That name that we would define for our audience to kind of create a slogan there. Welcome to the whatever nation. Make them feel like they belong to the community. Start building this community, building this social capital. For new visitors, right? You can see, you can use calls to subscribe there. That's something that, a lot of YouTubers and a lot of Twitch streamers and really a lot of everybody in all the social media does. Right? You're going to say, hey, if you're seeing this for the first time and you like it, right, go ahead and encourage them to evaluate it. Go ahead and say, hey, if you're seeing this, let me know what you think. Give me a like. Drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Get engaged. Get involved with what we're doing here. And oh, hey, if you like it, if you enjoy it, why don't you go ahead and click that subscribe button? It's free, and, if you wanted to undo it later, but you could do that too. Right? So you're creating the, and you're just doing this in a consistent manner across all your platforms. So any customer action can be turned into a trigger, right? Anything that we want our customers to do, we can craft a brand element to be a part of our identity that can help us tell the story that leads to that customer action, that leads to that user action. So the question then becomes, where does your messaging live? Where are you doing these interactions? Where are you telling these stories? And that's a question that only you can answer based on your audience. And so if we examine a brand, we have a quick look at a brand here. I can show you this logo and you immediately know what it is. Right? There's no question about it here. That's the Nike swoosh. That's Nike. Now, if Nike hadn't been building a brand over the course of the lifetime of the company, we wouldn't have any idea what this was. Right? Like you take an alien, you drop them onto the planet for the first time, you show them this, they have no idea what that is. But since Nike spent the entire life of the company establishing this story and telling this story and using a consistent brand message across all platforms, then we immediately, just based on this one, what is essentially a line, a varying thickness line, we can see this and we can say, ah, yeah, that's Nike. And we have people that have gone all the way down the Nike funnel, right? Like there are some people in the world that know Nike exists, but have never actually bought any Nikes or what have you. Right? I feel like they're probably fewer and further between. To some people who will buy a pair of Nikes every now and then when they see one that they really like, to people who only buy Nikes and who will buy the most expensive Nikes because they're unique and they're ideal and they're the brand that they connect with. Right? So when we look at instant recognizability and we look at the permeation of what these companies do into our everyday lives, well, it all really just kind of boils down to consistency. You got to be consistent. Consistent across all of those brand elements. Tone of voice and messages, to the aesthetics of your profiles. We want a through line that's going to connect everything together, that's going to make you recognizable and allow you to gain traction among your intended audience. Just being consistent is the big thing. Being consistent and getting that story out. So to wrap us up today, I'd like to do a couple of demonstrations here. I'd like to demonstrate some tools that we can use to create brand elements. And so I've got a couple here that me personally, I really like. They allow you to do things quickly and easily, right? Although they don't necessarily always give you all the best options, right? Because sometimes the best option is going to be something that's completely custom, which, these things are going to be able to allow you to create these brand elements quickly and easily, but they're not necessarily going to be completely custom. So I encourage you, if you're looking for something that's completely custom, there are people out there that do that, right? Like there are people out there that are designers that create these custom elements that will work with you to do things, right? Like that's why I, in part, offer, to help with some of that stuff. Because if you need something that's completely custom, something that would be a little more difficult to build maybe on your own, if you don't have any experience in that stuff, then it's best to kind of reach out and get help from someone who kind of has some expertise in that, who can give you a hand there. Right? But in terms of making simple stuff for ourselves, these are two creation tools that I like here. Canva.com, basically for every type of graphic, even logos. And then if you want to build a website for yourself that you can kind of use as a centralized promotional hub, Wix.com is a great place to go, right? You can have one website and you can put links to your YouTube, links to your Twitch, links to your Twitter, links to, whatever else you're using. Put it all on this one page. Then you can just share that one page on different platforms. And everybody can get links to everything. And you can use it as kind of a centralized hub for all of your material. Right? And just kind of have people kind of go out from the site. So I want to kind of look at them just a little bit as we kind of wrap up here. This is Canva. You can have a free account or a paid account with Canva. I use a free account here with Canva. You can get a whole lot with a free account. And you can actually see some of the stuff that I've done in Canva down here below. And we can see that, there are a lot of options and a lot of different things. Now, some of the stuff is, kind of generic, right? It's going to look like other stuff. But you can do a lot with it and work a lot with it. And it's a really easy tool to work with that can allow you to create stuff. And one of the coolest things here is what we have up here. We see things like, YouTube thumbnail, YouTube channel art, logo, Facebook cover, Facebook post, YouTube channel logo. That's for an Instagram story. Right, what else might we have here? Mobile video, Pinterest pin, LinkedIn banner, right? They have different templates for a lot of this social media stuff. We can even see this category up here that is social media. And if we click it, we get basically all of the quick create social media stuff. Animated Instagram posts, Instagram story ads, Instagram posts, Facebook, all sorts of other stuff here, WhatsApp, TikTok, YouTube intro, just general social media, Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn. And you could just start with one of these and you say, well, you know what I want to do? I want to build an Instagram post. So I can just click here and create a blank Instagram post. And it's going to by default give me the size that's going to be specific to creating a good Instagram post. Right, a nice square image here. And it's going to give me some templates over here. Some templates that I can use as a foundation. So I can do everything here from scratch by using elements and going through the elements and finding like, oh, like maybe I want to draw a square and put that square down here and make that square, click on this little gray square up here. That's going to allow me to change my colors. Make that like a magenta. Then maybe I can take some text from my little text bar here, add a heading, kind of size it down, put it into this and write, oh, watch me on Twitch.tv. Maybe if I have a logo, I could put the logo here. Maybe if I have a picture of myself, right, I can use this uploads tab to upload it. Right, these are just I can just upload some pictures that I've used before. Plop that in there. Right, take this position button, send it to the back so it goes behind that square. And all of a sudden I've created, something that would be neat to post on Instagram. And I can just download it from the download button here. And we can see that, a lot of the elements are absolutely free, right? If they're not free, they'll have a little pro crown logo in them. Let me see if I can find something here that has that. Yep, right here. This, we'll see if we can zoom in on that there. A little slow. There it goes. You see that little Crown Pro logo? That means unless we pay for it, that's kind of off limits. So that's out of my price range there, as it were. But you know what I can do? I can look at that and I can kind of use it as inspiration. Even though I can't use that template in general, I can use it as inspiration and I can kind of get an idea of layout and what I can do with that. We talked about creating logos here. We can have a quick look at a logo, right? We just go here. We can just use this in particular just to jump to a logo. It's also, if we look up here under more, it should be under here. Or actually, it'd probably be under marketing. Yep, logo, business card, email header, all this blog banner. Right? Basically everything you'd ever need. They have templates for it. So I can create a logo. And they'll have a lot of templates here, a lot of general logos for things. And so if I saw something that kind of fit, right, that wasn't pro, so it means I can use it. I can click on one to kind of drag it in. And then I can change the type, right, to be whatever my name is. Now, in this case, this has a little watermark on it. It's going to want me to pay for that. I can pay $1 for it. Right, so I can pay $1 to get that particular image. Once I pay that $1 to get that particular image, you'll also see that I can edit the colors for it. So if I have colors here that are specific to my brand and telling my brand story, I can add those there. But once I pay $1 for that, it'll remove that little watermark off of it, and I'll have a logo that I can use however I want to use it. Or you can just kind of do this kind of from default, right? Like if I wanted a tech logo here, I could just go in here and type computer in my elements panel, or something that would be kind of techy. You know, maybe use this use these Wi-Fi bars, change the colors, and all of a sudden I have a logo. I can swap it around. And all of a sudden, I've built something that can be used as a logo. And so then if I start using this everywhere, right, putting it in my different banners for things, right, putting it in some posts, putting it in some profile pictures, right, I start to create that awareness, start to create that presence. And we're doing pretty well. And as you can see here, like, this is quick and easy, right? Like, what I recommend for you all is to just go in here and play and just see how quick and easy it is, right? Because it's not hard to figure out, as you can kind of see here from this brief example. You know, it's just kind of click, click, click to get you to kind of where you want to go. And once you have something that looks nice, you can download it. And then you have that item that you can upload to Twitter, upload to Facebook, upload to YouTube, whatever you want to do with it. Right? So you can take advantage of these templates, take advantage of all these already done elements, take advantage of these already done templates to get a certain look and feel, upload your own content. And you can even connect it to different content, right? Like I can connect it to YouTube. And I can create an interactive presentation or a video that has a YouTube video in it. I can make a QR code. I can draw on here. Bitmojis, right? Things that people use in other areas. Like if you use a Bitmoji, you can connect your Bitmoji with this and have your Bitmoji in different things. You know, and again, this is something that you might use. It's something that you might not use, right? It's going to depend on you as an individual. You can do whatever here. Lots of options. Backgrounds. Put a background behind that. Right, again, that one has a watermark on there, so I might have to pay $1 to remove that watermark. You know, make it a little bit interesting. And so really quickly got a question. How do you cite up a small video within the logo? So in general, you're probably not going to want to use a video in a logo. That's more of a presentation, maybe a larger video thing. They do have video options here. Set up. So let's just look at setting up a video here. So for example, they have these video options as well. So we'll look at this. And so basically it gives you the opportunity to create different things, right? One of the things you might want here is like something like this, right? Maybe not exactly this, but it gives you the video background, right? It has a video background in here, and you can change the text that's on top of it. So it'll give you this sort of thing, right? And then when you download that, you're downloading it as an MP4 video. Let's have a look at the logo element. So like if you have a video, like it'll let you upload videos and things here as well to your media. If we're making a logo and we want to add a video to it, or we want to add some animation to it, we can do that as well. So like, let's see here. Got an animate button here, right? And so I can do some basic animations to it. That will give it, it'll just kind of make this into a little bit of an animation. Animate our text in. Right, and then we end up with a little animated sort of thing there that we could use. And then when we download that, we'll just want to download it as an MP4 video or an animated GIF. Right, so we can add animation in that way, or we can just use videos that maybe we've uploaded or maybe they have available to us in the elements panel. Like they have videos that they have available here that we could bring in as well. Does that help answer your question a little bit there? Okay. Yeah, I might just want a little might just need a little clarification there. So yeah, you can call after and we can sort that out a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, that'd probably be good. And so we'll go ahead and have a quick look at Wix, and then we'll wrap things up for today, so we can do that. And Wix just allows me to make a little website. One of the big things here is that it is for the base level. You can make a free site. They have premium as well, which you don't necessarily need, right? The base level, you get the free thing. So let me just create a quick new account here so we can see that from that perspective. If everything, if Chrome will cooperate. So it just kind of walks you through kind of just some basic stuff. I can pick the type of website I'm creating. If it's a blog, if it's a tech company, if it's just a little whatever, right? I can start um, typing in just kind of whatever I'm doing, and it'll give me different categories based on that. And that'll help it suggest templates to me. I can enter the name of the business or enter the name of whatever I'm doing, right? Like, really quick, really simple. Give it some options as to what I want to do. For our purposes, most of what you'll probably want to do is just promote yourself, right? We can look at different types of things that you want to add to your site, whether you want to add video, whether you want to add a blog, whether you want to add music, whatever you want to do here. We'll select video and a blog. Choose how many sites you've created before. This will give you like a different walkthrough. So if you said this is my first time, which I've created many, but it'll give you a walkthrough here, let you just kind of walk through and let this site be created for you, or you can choose a template. And so it's super simple to just kind of fill this out and work with it, right? Like if we don't have anything to import here, we can just skip. Add social accounts here, probably something you wanted to do. Pick a nice little theme. And it's just going to do everything for you, right? So again, this is, you know, if you want to try your hand at making a little website for your project or whatever, you know, this is something that I recommend kind of going in and playing with and figuring out, you know, if you follow this kind of pathway, it's going to do everything for you. You know, you can pick you a little template, it's going to build it for you, add some pages for you, do whatever for you, right? Add a contact page, add a bio, add a whatever type of page, right? Add blank pages, you know, that you can go edit later. And then once you get in here, you know, it's just as simple as like editing a Word document. I can take and replace pictures, add, you know, make them videos, just delete them all together, change the way my stuff is laid out from columns to being a full image or a background image, change my colors. You know, just all sorts of options. And it, you know, it's friendly and it's kind of here and it does it for you. And when you're ready to go, you just click publish and you'll have a website. So we've gone past our hour mark for today, and so I kind of want to wrap things up here. We'll turn the music back on for just a minute. If anybody has any further questions, we can go ahead and try to address those. Ken will get on our call as quickly as possible. That's all that I have for you all for today, though. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.